Despite losing to the New York Islanders on Saturday, the Carolina Hurricanes are still 17-9-1 on the season, but the question kind of remains in this stretch of games since Utah. What is the state of the Carolina Hurricanes as we get closer to the end of 2024?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I'm also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys on Monday as we get to, give my overall thoughts from the game on Saturday in the Carolina Hurricanes loss against the New York Islanders. Also talking about the state of the Hurricanes and where we're at right now after basically it's been an interesting stretch of games since Utah, and also get to answer some questions in our first ever mailbag that we've done in a while. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, going to the Carolina Hurricanes game from Saturday, you go into Long Island. You're just coming off the win against the Colorado Avalanche 2 days before on Thursday. You beat them 5-3. Yeah, the game was close, but pretty much was a 60-minute game of Carolina Hurricanes playing their hockey, even though they were down 1-0 early, or down 1-0 in general to the Avalanche. And you're going to Long Island. You're feeling good about yourselves. You just snapped the losing skid, played a really great hockey, and the Islanders are last place. Now, not every game is a gimme, but you're kind of feeling that this is the game the Hurricanes should win, especially after how they played against Colorado. And unfortunately, while they did have a 2-1 lead at one point, thanks to Andrei Svechnikov, they still gave up 4 goals in the second period, and you end up losing 4-3. And it starts to beg more questions of what's going on with the Canes, which we'll talk about later on in the show. But in that game, you see Andrei Svechnikov get 2 power play goals, which, that's great. You love to see that, 2 for 3 overall. He scored 3 goals in the span at one point in a span of 5 periods. Even it was like 3 periods because it was the end of the third against Colorado, then the first and second periods against the Islanders. So you're talking like 3 goals in 3 periods. Like, you're feeling pretty good if Andrei Svechnikov is playing. And you're playing overall good hockey. You're doing what you need to do, but then it's just you kind of see them go away from their game once again. They get outpaced, out-transitioned by the Islanders. And, defense isn't really playing that great. You're letting guys kind of walk into the zone. Kochetkov, for the most part, there's probably one goal you want to get back, and that's the one from Wahlstrom. Other than that, not much he can do when every other goal that's gone in is basically either backdoor in transition or just in a shot that he can't stop. And it's one of those things where you're constantly giving up goals now, and you are still somewhat shooting the puck and you're still scoring, but it's like you are seeing a Hurricanes team that needs to score 4 goals to win. And for those who haven't listened, if you have or haven't listened yet, I recently was on the Storm Cellar and with Brad and Ray, and we kind of talked about, just the state of the Hurricanes in general too. And Brad brought up the point of the Hurricanes, the last time they've won a game that was where they scored 3 goals or less was back on October 22nd against the Edmonton Oilers, and that was that 3-2 comeback win in overtime during the Canadian road trip. And when Brad mentioned that, it's like, it's crazy to think that the Hurricanes, as of now on December 9th, have not won a game with 3 goals or less since October 22nd. And I know that doesn't seem so far away, but that's a good – you're talking the entire month of November, a little bit of October that's left, and now, of course, it's a little bit of December. And almost every game they've had to win, it's usually 4 goals or more. And while it's good you're scoring a lot of goals, but you also kind of need to win those really tight playoff-style games where you're going to have to battle. You're going to have to find a way to make those games work for you to where you're going to have to get more greasy goals. You can't just – you can't pull like an Edmonton Oilers where you're having to shoot the lights out on your opponents. And against a team like the Islanders, you're kind of seeing this weird thing where it's they want to play, but it's kind of like we're not getting a full 60, and that's what you saw against the Islanders, because for a team like them, who's at the time going into the game was dead last in the Metro Division, you think about like the Hurricanes should have handled business a little bit better. Of course, we know how against the Kraken at home wasn't great. I mean, the Florida games were, it's the defending Cup champs for a reason. It is what it is. But you would kind of think after you played Colorado, you would go into the Islanders game feeling a little bit better, and you feeling playing your game. And you were seeing that for the most part until that second period. And it seems like the second period, bad mojo, voodoo, wherever you want to call it, we saw 2 seasons ago, rear its ugly head on the Hurricanes once again. And now that's the second game in a span of a couple weeks, if that, to where they dropped 5 in the second period against the Avalanche back in early November. So like within a month, you saw them drop that many goals in the second period to the Avalanche. You see them drop 4 goals in the third period of the 6-0 blowout against the Panthers and Sunrise. And now you come into Long Island and you give up 4 goals in the second. Now, granted, the 4 against the Panthers were in the third period, but still, though, you still see a recurring trend of too many goals, but especially, like I said, against Colorado and now New York, multiple goals in the second period, and you just fall flat. And even against the Kraken, while they give up a plethora of goals in that game, 2 shots in that period against Seattle, even against Utah, they had 2. It's a weird trend we're seeing once again with how the second period is for the Hurricanes, of how they're struggling to get up and get going for that period. Or even early in games where you see them against Dallas, against the Rangers, against Florida, now you are seeing them giving up way too many goals early on in games, and they're having to fight back. And the thing is, you can't. Yes, we know the comeback Canes, we know the cardiac Canes, but you can't keep relying on that being a thing every game. And games like against the Islanders, they won't give you much. They will block a lot of shots, because if they get up on you, they will find a way to park the bus in front of the net, and you will get shots, but a lot of them are probably going to go off of bodies, and that's what you saw. And the only reason why the Hurricanes even got the third was because KK was the most fresh guy on the ice, because everyone else on both sides were on the ice for so long. He came on as an extra attacker and scored a goal with like less than a minute left, but by then they're already down 2 goals. What more can you do at that point? So it's just teams against like the Islanders, teams like the Kraken, you have to be up early and you got to keep your foot on the gas. And sometimes it's either the Hurricanes, especially this one, just don't show up early, or you don't get a full 60. And that's what you see with the Islanders, where, you went 2 for 3 in the power play. Yeah, your penalty kill went perfect. But at the same time, it's just kind of like, you can't have a game like that. And while I'm saying this, you still have to feel optimistic, though, too, because the fact that the Hurricanes are still 17-9-1. They're still in a playoff spot. They still have games in hand on the Devils, while, the Rangers have games in hand on the Hurricanes, and they've played the same amount of games as the Capitals. But the Hurricanes are a lot farther than a lot of people thought they were going to be. Like, national media thought they were going to make the playoffs. Some people thought they were barely going to get a wild card spot. And they're farther ahead than a lot of people think. Now, where we thought they were going to keep up that pace like they did on the Canadian trip out west? No, of course not. But you've seen them play good hockey, and right now the stretch, I would say it since Utah. That Utah game, it has been absolutely weird since then. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the state of the Hurricanes since that game. So, Stick around, guys. I'll dive more into this state of the Hurricanes and what's been going on since that weird mini 3-game road trip, especially the one that started in Utah that's kind of spiraled into what it is now. So stick around as I'll jump into all of that here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to call through a bet of hot Colts just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with a purchase of a $3 3-month plan, I called him on it. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was time I had to spend on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonAHL. Then you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer in your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonAHL. That is mintmobile.com/lockedonAHL. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedon. $45 upfront payment required, which is equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes, unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching thousands of tickets. And we're not just talking about sports, guys. We're talking about concerts, comedies, theaters, and so much more. And with their all-in pricing, you toggle this feature, and it will show you your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Now, my favorite feature is the Panoramic View Seat Finder because you get to see great views from your seats in the app before you even buy it. Because, let's be honest, you don't want obstructive views, you don't want awkward angles, and you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. And you can do that with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONAHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? I mean, obviously, it's game time. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. And like I said at the end of segment 1, it's kind of like we're going to go over what I think is the state of the Hurricanes right now. And I kind of have to almost harken it back to the Utah game. I know some people might say like the Avalanche game where they did lose that game 6-4. But if you really think about it, I mean, same day travel, they were supposed to go in the day before. They got, they couldn't do it because of the snowstorm. They still got into town. They were up 2-0 on the Avalanche. Altitude got to them. Colorado scored 5 goals in the second period. It is what it is. And, they were able to claw their way back, but unfortunately lost 6-4 in the end. But for me, and you go to the Vegas Golden Knights, you dominate there. You're kind of like, okay, it was a weird blip on the radar for the Hurricanes against the Avalanche. It is what it is. Those games are always weird when they go to Colorado. What can you do? You go into Utah. Now, Utah's not the worst team in the league, but you still feel like you can kind of put an effort in that game. Unfortunately, you did it. It's very weird. And after that, I think this is where you start seeing the weird Jekyll and Hyde type hockey we've seen from the Hurricanes. And there's some days where you might see Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde type hockey, where it's like it's one of those things where it's you don't know what you're going to get from game to game because, like I said, you lose to Utah 4-1. You win 3 straight games with a shutout against the Senators. You beat the Blues 4-1 in the back-to-back. You go and beat the Flyers 4-1. But then it's lose to the Devils 4-2 on the road. Then you lose that weird game against Columbus 5-4. Okay, you lose back-to-back against Metro teams, but you were just on a 3-game winning streak. You come back against Dallas, but You give up a goal early. You had to fight back for 5 goals in a period yourselves to get back and beat Dallas. You're down to the Rangers. You come back and beat them. Okay, great. But then you go into Thanksgiving, and then you come back out of Thanksgiving, and then it's like, okay, you lose 6-3 to the Panthers while you played good for the most part early on and then kind of got away from it later on. And then the game at Sunrise, you lose 6-0 and you just get absolutely torched in the fourth period. We only put up 2 shots. They score 4 goals, not the greatest, not the prettiest of games. And you're like, okay, it's the defending cup champs. What can you do? But then you go and play the Kraken. You're kind of, people are going to the game going, okay, the Hurricanes lost back-to-back against Florida, but it's Seattle. They're going to be at home. They'll right the ship. They'll be okay. And you play probably one of your worst games in a long time, and that's discounting the Jack Drury disallowed goal, where if you won that game ugly, okay, it is what it is. You still won the game, but it was a very ugly win. But the goal gets taken off the board. You give one up right away. They get a 4th one. You kind of fight back, but by then it's too late. Now you're in a 3-game losing streak. You haven't lost 2 games. The first time you lost 2 games all season was against Florida. You lose the third one to Seattle. But then you come and play a phenomenal 60 minutes to the Avalanche, despite them coming back in a couple times. But you found a way to get the job done, and then you start good against the Islanders, and then all of a sudden they score 4 goals on you, then you just kind of just get away from your game, and then it's like, what now? And I feel like this is where the part of, like I said, this is that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or it's that Dr. Hyde, Mr. Jekyll type thing, where it's like, it's just, you see them get in that tweener position of like, okay, we see them playing great hockey, then they lose it, or they play bad hockey, we see it, or they'll find a way to like start good, look like it starts going to sideways, but then stop and then figure it back out again. You're not getting the consistent hockey that we've seen, coming out of the Western, Canadian road trip. You're really playing great hockey. You go into Halloween, you beat up on the Bruins 8-2. You beat Washington. You beat the Flyers 6-4. You beat the Penguins 5-1. Then you have that weird game against Colorado. Then, like I said, then you beat the Golden Knights. And then it's just ever since Utah, ever since November 13th, even with that 3-game winning streak against Ottawa, St. Louis, Philadelphia, and then those 2 back-to-backs, it has been a weird stretch of games for the Hurricanes since November 13th, where you see them playing really great. Okay, this is Hurricanes hockey. And then you see them where it's like, okay, what is going on? Where's the disconnect? And I think, too, like even Rod Brennamore said it, to where it's the line changes aren't working. And if the line changes aren't really working really well, like, you're switching up lines, you're putting guys with other guys because, you're used to kind of seeing it work, but it's like, now it's not. And Rod even says, like, it's just not working like it used to. And if it's like, okay, well, then you have to figure out lines that work together. You maybe just need to start keeping them together and let them figure it out, let them get the kinks out themselves instead of trying to jumpstart lines, because right now it's not working. And the thing is, you can't rely on Martin Aegis to point his way for you to get out of your problems. It's great that he's got 42 points. It's great that he's leading the NHL. First Czech player since Jacob Voracek to do it. First Hurricane since Rod Brennamore since 2006 to do it. He's continuously setting, fastest Hurricane to do this, fastest Hurricane to do that in terms of points and how many games. And, he had 71 2 seasons ago, but now he's on pace to not just be the only second-time Hurricanes player to hit 100 points. He's probably the first Hurricane to set an all-time franchise record for points, which is 105. He's on pace for like 120, 130. Like 120, 130. Like he's on pace to have no one's probably going to touch this record type season that he's on right now. And that's 42 points in 27 games right now. But it's like you can't rely on him to do everything. And Rod said it's the fact that he's putting it on his shoulders for the offense, which is great, but you can't rely on him to do that every game. And you look at this last game, he got another assist. But then it's like, okay, Shane Gostisbehere got 3 assists. Great, he contributed. Sebastian Aho got an assist. You didn't realize that he did, but while he's playing good hockey, he's getting you like he's still a point per game guy. And I talked about this on Storm Cellar with Brad and Ray. Is that the three of us talked about it? Like Aho and Svetch are point per game guys, but they're a combined minus 11. Svetch, you'll see him in some games, sometimes you don't. Aho, you'll see him and sometimes you don't. And it's like Rod has said he wants the big guys to step up more, and you want to see that from them, but it's like you're not seeing that on a consistent basis. It's like, okay, stat sheet, it's like, okay, you want them to pop up on the stat sheet, but if they're not, you at least want them to be doing something on the ice off puck, and sometimes don't see that. To where it's almost like they're kind of invisible, but then you do somewhat see them, like, okay, there they are, but it's that weird, it's not a consistent thing. And Brad said it's like, yeah, you want Sebastian Aho to be a superstar, but you also sometimes you don't see him be that superstar of taking over games all the time, like a Makar, McKinnon, Matthews, all of them. And he's not someone who's you are noticing every single game, and that's what you see with a upcoming superstar who I think is Seth Jarvis, to where he's noticeable, even if he's not putting up points, he's noticeable every game, flying around the ice, throwing hits, breaking up plays, keeping plays going, pucks on net. You see Seth Jarvis being that guy who's consistently being noticed on the ice, doing the right things, doing the things that Rod wants, a 200-foot game. Sebastian Aho plays a great 200-foot game. I know, they call him Ron Francis 2.0, and he does a lot of great things, but it's also sometimes it's like you don't really – there's that 200-foot game of you being, okay, you're doing your job, but you're not getting noticed, but then you're playing your 200 game and you're being noticed in a good way, like a Seth Jarvis. Where, yeah, Sebastian Aho is doing his thing, but you're kind of like, okay, where though? Where's that happening? And like I said, I love Sebastian Aho, but it's like kind of like what Rod's saying is you want to see him do that next step. So Andrei Svechnikov, even after a 4-point performance, he knows there's another level to his play that you're waiting for. But you're seeing it with Seth Jarvis every night. And now Martin Necas, we also know how good he was 2 years ago. Last year was kind of a step back just because, his numbers got dwindled down. He was put in different situations. He was also hurt. So you see where he took a step back last year. But now this year, you're seeing him play the puck a lot more. No turnovers are very limited. His defense has gotten better. Board battles have gotten better. He's not afraid to get in there. Holding on to pucks at the right time, shooting at the right times. Spinorama moves that mesmerize you. That's where he's at right now. And he's more noticeable. So that's where you're kind of like, okay, maybe these guys are taking that next step that you want, that you would expect from Aho and Svechnikov. I'm not saying, like I said, nothing negative against them, but it's just you're getting this weird in between of like you see guys who are consistently doing it, and then you see guys who are showing that we know that they're there, but it's also not also there, if that makes sense. And that's where you're getting that weird in between, and that's why you're seeing where the Hurricanes are now. You'd rather have them struggle now, because we saw this last year going into December. They struggled going to the Western Canada trip in December, had that players only meeting in Vancouver, and then they kicked it in gear. So once again, it seems like they're kind of having that weird, we start hot, kind of middle around in the back end of November, early December. We kind of middle our way through it. And then you find it mid-December, and then it's just boom, you click in the gear, and everything just gets right back into place. All the gears mesh up, and they just take off. We're almost kind of seeing that once again. And that the people think, I think it's where people need to start also relaxing, tempering expectations, because there was no expectations going into the season. No one thought the Hurricanes were going to win the division. No one thought they were going to be anywhere near it or even make the playoffs, or they're going to get a wild card spot. And right now, you're third in the division. You're still close to, you're not that far back at second. I think you're like 2 points back. You're 4 or 5 points back of first place against the Capitals, who are on a hot run all of a sudden, which no one thought was going to happen. But you're still in a good spot to where you still have games in hand on the Devils. You're good enough to where you're most likely you're probably going to avoid a wild card spot. So you're a lot farther than what people thought you were going to be. So it's, even the Winnipeg Jets just lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets Sunday night 4-1. And they were started 9-0-0, and now they went on a 4-game losing streak, and they're not playing great hockey. The Rangers aren't playing good hockey too. Like, they just got rid of their captain in the most heartless way possible. We thought Vegas was what they did to Marc-Andre Fleury was bad. The Rangers did it to their captain. But you look at where the Hurricanes sit right now. You're not a Buffalo Sabres where it's like, okay, you see the promise, but then they never deliver on it. You don't see where they're at, where the Blackhawks are at, where they have all these veterans and they have these young guys, but they can't figure it out. San Jose's struggling once again. And you see the Islanders with all their contracts, they're in a tough spot too because they're an old team and they're just meddling around. But where the Hurricanes sit right now, it's a lot better spot than other teams. So I think we have to almost come back to the realization in the back to earth of this team is farther than they are, but they're playing great hockey and they're in a lot better spot. It's just you're hitting this weird lull, rough patch that we see every year from the Hurricanes. So while the state of the Hurricanes right now is kind of like, oh crap, what do we do? Or oh my goodness, what now? You're still in a good spot overall, more than other teams. It's just you hit a rough patch that every team has. Even the guys have said it too. You hear from, Jordan Martin, Jordan Stahl, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis. Like, all these guys are saying, yeah, we're hitting a rough patch. We're not playing great hockey. We're not playing our normal Hurricanes hockey. And even Rod said it too, that they're not doing that. And, it's a lot. You see a lot more frustrated Rod than you've seen before. And you are seeing a little bit more of a inconsistent play from these guys more often now, but you're still in a better spot than a lot of people thought you were going to be. And I think it's just kind of okay. It's not time to hit the panic button, but it's also time to pump the brakes a little bit on the let's not freak out and let's start just knee-jerk reaction and start going and trading and trying to pick guys all over the place, because a lot of teams are struggling right now, and we know the Hurricanes can bounce back out of it because we saw them do it last year. And now this year with a bunch of new guys, they're still trying to figure it out. And, it's concerning, but it's not it's DEFCON 5 and we need to start hitting the panic button and start, fire selling and, doing all these moves and making moves to make moves and, trade our way out of our problems and all this stuff. It's like the Hurricanes are in a good spot. Like, it's okay, guys. It's going to be all right. It's just that it's just got to be patient, let them figure it out. And I think, they're going to find the way to fight out of it. So in terms of the state of the Hurricanes, they're in a good spot, despite, the inconsistent play right now and them losing the way they are. Overall, you're still talking about a 17-9-1 Hurricanes team that I think a lot of people didn't think they were going to be at this point. And you got a guy like Martin Necas who's lighting the world on fire right now in the NHL. So it's going to be okay. It's just, it is what it is right now. But that's it for the state of that's the state of the Hurricanes right now. Let me know in the comments. How are you feeling? Do you agree? Do you feel like I'm a little bit off? Let me know your thoughts of where you think the state of the Hurricanes are at right now in the comment section. I would love to hear from you guys on all that. Now, we get to move on to some fan questions. I did get a couple on X, Twitter, wherever you want to call it, and also Blue Sky. So big thank you to everyone who sent those in. So we'll go over those questions here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, big thank you to everyone who sent in fan questions on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, also Blue Sky. So gotta get this one out of the way. This one is from Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils. Gotta be, he's hilarious. Gotta answer his question first. Demas, Dougie, Holla, Pesci, and Nason. Dougie, yeah, he was great. He was a good defenseman. You know, he has been with the Hurricanes for a bit, but yeah, it's it's good to see him, healthy and stuff like that. But miss him. We got guys that we still got around for a long time after that. Brett Pesci, yeah, you do miss Brett. He was a Hurricane for a long time. It stinks that he's gone, but hey, you know what? Good for him getting his money. He deserves it. He's played really well for Carolina. It's weird to see him in a different jersey because he was drafted by the Hurricanes. He was with us for so long. It just feels weird seeing him in a Devils jersey. Steph Nason, same thing. Came to Carolina. Won a Calder. With the Chicago Wolves, comes up. He's your power play. He's your power play, greasy goal specialist. Very sneaky goal scorer. You love what he did on the ice. Great fourth line guy, did what he needed to do. So yeah, you miss him. For what he contributed. In his own way. Eric Hall, absolutely not. No, don't miss him at all. Halfway in New Jersey, don't care. That's all I'm going to say about it. Don't miss him. And you can holla at me about it, but no. Don't even miss him a bit. Big thing, but thank you to Trey. Appreciate you. Locked On Devils. This one is from Katie Bartlett. As always, thank you to her for the questions. Avs Canes fan. The Canes have given up 3 or more goals in each of the last 9 games. What adjustments need to be made in order to mitigate some of this leakiness, in air quotes, on a team that prides itself on its defensive identity? Okay, that's a great question. Right now, it's structurally, you got to get back to your basics. Tim Gleason is not a fan of this. You know how much he prides on his defense playing really well, especially when you're talking about a team who's top 5 every year. It's the mental lapses that's what's getting this team right now. They're not focused. They're not focused all 60 minutes. You're seeing guys are out of position, not pinching at the right time, not trailing guys, not doing the things that are necessary that you're used to the Hurricanes. And right now, I think they're overcompensating whatever this problem is, to where they are trying to play too much offense, or they're trying to run after guys. They're rushing too much. They're not staying structured. They're falling almost out of what makes the structure of the Hurricanes the structure of the Hurricanes, and they're not focused. I think the focus is gone from what you're used to in this system. So I think the adjustment needs to be them getting out of their own heads and getting into where you're used to them playing their game. They're not playing Hurricanes hockey. They're playing whatever's going on right now. And it's just, you'll see it some games where they're just absolutely stifling other teams, where they're not scoring a lot of goals. You're not giving them chances. But right now, it's not conducive. It's not hockey that you're used to seeing from this team. And that's the problem is it's the mentality. It's that mental being in it and staying 100% focused for 60 minutes. You're seeing those laps in judgments to where guys aren't playing the right guy. They're not playing the right spot correctly. They're giving up way too many high danger chances, and you're almost leaving your goalies to dry most of the time. And you even talk about the forward group too. The forwards aren't doing their jobs and manning their guys on the defensive side of things. There's a lot of guys who are missing that 200-foot game, and that's where it's kind of, I think it's hurting the team as well. It's not just the defense itself, but it's all of the guys in front of the goaltender, to where mental lapses are hurting this team, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the Islanders were the transition game. It's just not working out right now. So I think the big thing is the mentality has to get back into focusing on what they know how to do, and that's play their game of hockey and stop playing everyone else's. So from Jeff on Blue Sky, is the answer at goalie on the roster? Yes. Pierre Kochetkov, I think, is the goalie of the future. He's the goalie right now. Yes, maybe he is giving up a couple softies that you don't want to have, but he's also being kind of way too aggressive. But you're seeing the defense and the team in front of him kind of, not being 100% ready to go, and you're seeing him being over aggressive to overcompensate what the team in front of him is doing. So that's why you're seeing him being a little bit more aggressive. But if the team plays a structured defense like how they're supposed to, then it's like, okay, then you're kind of seeing him not having to be as aggressive. But overall, do I think the answering goalie is on the roster? Yes. Pyotr Kochetkov is that guy. I'm still very high on him being the 1A to whoever they bring in next year as his 1B to the tandem. You would love to see Frederick Anderson come back healthy. We're still weeks away from that, but you hope that gets figured out. Dustin Dukarski's, we haven't seen him yet, but he's a solid backup to help out right now because you got Spencer Martin back with the Chicago Wolves with Yannick Perez. But I still believe the guy is still Pyotr Kochetkov. It's just the team in front of him is having some troubles right now, not giving teams opportunities. Yeah, he's letting in a couple softies. Yes, he's being over aggressive, but I still think Pyotr Kochetkov is the guy for the Hurricanes now and in the future, because we still have 2 more years of a contract at $2 million with him after this season. And I think giving him the bulk of the load once again, and just, when we get out of this rough patch, I think you're going to see him being that guy, which he still is. It's just right now it's the team getting a little bit too tight and letting the mentals get to them right now. From the Storm Cellar, shout out to Brad and Ray. Will the Canes try and trade KK? Will Suzuki get a shot in the NHL this season? Trading KK, I'm not sure, because you're still talking about a good chunk of his contract still being on the books for the Hurricanes. And while the AAV isn't terrible for the most part when it comes to Jesperi Kotkaniemi, I think the problem is the term. I think that's where you're seeing that, okay, can a team take on 5 more years of this contract? Because we're in year 3 of 8. It's $4.82 million. He had a hot start. Now he's kind of fallen off. But the thing is, though, he still is putting up a 0.52 points per game because he has 14 points in 27 games. But the thing is, he's also averaging, once again, less than 12 minutes of even strength time on ice. But his Corsi 4 is 56.5, and his goals 4% is 56.4. So it's not terrible. Yes, it's money for a guy that you would want to see more production out of, but you see him where he's playing more of a defensive game. And like I said, he's still putting over a half a point per game. And that's even the fact that he's been, Rod says it's not a demotion, but it's a demotion. He's still doing what he needs to do. We saw how good he was on the second line. It's just for whatever reason right now, we know he had a bad game defensively, give us some opportunities. He hasn't really been back up there, but if you want a team to take that contract, you have to see who's willing to take that $4.82 million in full with 5 more years attached to that. Will the Hurricanes be willing to trade him and eat some of that contract? Maybe. But then you're talking, what, $2,410,000 per season that you're going to have to eat. Tom Dundon isn't a guy who wants to eat a contract and have to pay a guy $2.4 million to go play for another team for the next 5 seasons. I just don't see that happening. Now, if you can find a team that wants to take that full contract for 5 years, I can maybe see someone doing it. It's just who and what's the price and what are you going to get back? Because if you think you're going to get a bona fide second line center that everyone wants to have, you're not going to get that. That's just not a thing that you're going to get for Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I like Jesperi, but you're not going to see him get that type of return back for a full 5 years at 4.82 without you eating some of that money. So you're going to get what you get out of that. Do I see them making the trade? I don't know. I don't see it really happening. Maybe with 3 years left, maybe I could see that happening. But 5? How short is that list of teams that are willing to make that move? And what are you going to be okay with in terms of what's that return going to be for Kotkaniemi? Do I think Suzuki is going to make a showing in the NHL this season? I would hope, I would wish that you could maybe see him, do that. I'm not really sure because the Chicago Wolves as of late have been playing some great hockey. They've been winning a lot of more games. They're figuring it out, but do I see Ryan Suzuki being that guy to come up and do what he needs? Because right now he's got 16 points in 20 games. 1 goal, 15 assists. He's a +4. His shooting percentage is 2.9. He has 34 goals. He's 34 shots on goal, 2.9 shooting percentage. I would probably see more of a Bradley Nadeau, who's got 5 goals and 12 points in 20 games. He has 34 shots, same amount as Suzuki, but his shooting percentage is a 14.7. He's only 4 points back, has 4 more goals, maybe less assists, but I would see if they were going to call someone up to do anything this year, I would see a Bradley Nadeau over Ryan Suzuki. And nothing against Ryan. He, like I said, he is leading the team in points, but adding a body that's shooting less than 3% when you want a team that needs scoring in a sense, is just not. I don't think that's the guy you bring up. Yes, he's healthy for once. He's playing great hockey, but 1 goal out of 16 points. Yeah, you want a guy to facilitate assists. You want, he's a good center, but I just don't see him being that guy to be called up from Chicago for the Hurricanes. I think the Doe would be your first call up more than anything else if you're looking for an actual forward that you need, or if you really need one, maybe Tyson Jost. I would say Brandon Lemieux, but apparently he might be going over to Switzerland because his contract just got terminated. I would say maybe a Tyson Jost if you really need an extra body, some NHL experience. Maybe you give Bradley Nadeau a shot if you really need to bring someone up. I don't see the Hurricanes really needing to bring someone up. Like I said, I would like to see Ryan Suzuki get a shot eventually, but I just, with where he's at right now, of him being more of an assist guy, to where, okay, yeah, you would love to have an assist guy, but we have a bunch of assist guys. You need guys to also put pucks in net. And if your shooting percentage is less than 3, I just don't see that as a glaring, we need him. We need him right now because we're struggling. You almost need a guy who's clicking enough to where he's putting up almost a point per game with a high shooting percentage with multiple goals. Like I said, 15 assists is great. Nothing to scoff at with 15 assists. That's amazing. But it's also kind of like, I just don't see him being that guy that's going to come up for the Hurricanes. But hey, I could be wrong. He might be that guy. But as of right now, I don't see Ryan Suzuki getting a shot in the NHL this year with the Hurricanes. Maybe he's trade bait for someone else down the road who really wants him. Who knows? But in terms of the Canes, I just don't see it right now. I just don't think he's that guy that's going to come onto this roster and be that person that they need right now. So we'll see. But thank you to everyone who did send in questions on X and Blue Sky. We got to try to do this a little bit more often over the season. I know we haven't done one in a while. I think just after the way the Hurricanes played against the Islanders, I guess I kind of want to get everyone's thoughts. Where are we at in the state of the Hurricanes and how the fan base is right now. But, once I do, make sure to, keep up on socials where I do send those out to where if you want to get your questions answered on the show, make sure to send them in. I'd love to answer for you guys and kind of interact with y'all. So we'll do that. Try to do that at least once a month where we get a mailbag question and kind of get the overall feelings from the fan base. But, guys, that will be a Monday episode of Locked On. Thank you for making this your first listen today or your second listen. Make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, if you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you are on Blue Sky, I'm at the Zachary Martin over there. I do have a link tree in both of my bios where you can check out all my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com. You can search Zach Martin. You'll find my author page. You can check out all my articles over there. Been doing a lot this start of December. We got a lot more coming up and stuff like this. Make sure to keep an eye on the Hockey Writers. You can find all my articles over there. If you want to check out my other podcasts, The Searchcast, just go to The Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, Locked on Hurricanes on Apple, Spotify, Google. Leave a 5-star rating review because if you do, I might read it on the show. For YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button if you like the show as well. Share with all the Caniacs who become everydayers just like you. And like I said, in the comments, let me know how you're feeling right now with the state of the Carolina Hurricanes as of right now. But I hope everyone enjoyed this Monday episode of Locked on Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Monday. Hurricanes play on Tuesday, and we'll preview that for Tuesday's episode. And until then, as always, guys, let's go Canes.